Okay, the time has come for me to go through this video to identify the key aspects. In fact, I'm just going to go through one key aspect in this one, and then I'll do a elongated breakdown of all of the aspects. But there was one thing that really stuck out to me. There were a couple of things that people have identified, and I'll expose what they are. But one thing that really stuck out to me that I hadn't seen anybody identify, and even when I urged people to go back and look at it, giving a clue with this video, nobody came in with any further insight to what was already mentioned. Now, I mentioned in this one that there was only one person that identified or was close to identifying what it was that was being said that was wrong. And that is at MVP Kryptonite. And their comment was, I won't timestamp it, but it's now possible for a championship to be won in a race. Okay? And it's literally that comment. I won't timestamp it, but it's now possible for a championship to be won in a race. Now, what does that mean? During that race, they showed us this graphic. Okay, this is the global feed. We're on lap 51 of 58. Okay, and as, what's this, turn 9, I believe, as they're going around there, this graphic comes up on screen. As it stands, Lewis Hamilton, 394.5 points. Max Verstappen, 388.5 points. All right, so it's a difference there of 6 points. In the championship, you get 25 points for, sorry, in a race, you get 25 points for winning, 18 points for coming second. That's a difference of 7. So that would indicate at this stage, Max Verstappen has the fastest lap. So that at this stage, Hamilton is on course for 25 points. Max Verstappen is on course for 19 points, second place plus fastest lap. Because we know that they went into that race level on points. Okay? Let's take you through the audio and the bit that I was referring to. So, Crofty is able to say this.
But he needs a little bit more than that. As it stands, 390.
As it stands,
4.5 points for Lewis Hamilton. He will become world champion. Max
Verstappen, it'll become the world champion, not a record-breaking 8-time world champion.
Verstappen will have led more laps than...
No, straight away we'll divert to Max Verstappen leading more laps, which means absolutely nothing.
Any other driver during the course of this season, but it won't be enough to give him that dream of a first ever.
Everybody's got a dream, okay? Leading laps doesn't make your dream come true.
Formula One World Championship. We've said it all season long, Martin, and especially this weekend, though. Whoever is champion, both drivers have put in a champion performance all season long, without doubt.
I'll go through that at some point, but a champion performance doesn't require the aid of the governing body to not penalise them for all their infringements throughout the season. That's not a champion performance.
But if you look back, there's all those little tormenting moments, aren't there? Your Max got wiped out, didn't he, when Valtteri Bottas was playing billiards in Hungary and the tyre in Baku, and Lewis, you know, went off in Baku then. And
Lewis went off in Baku, all right? Lewis was in second position at that point in time. Okay, the race could have easily been a safety car finish, whereby they'd have just paraded around behind the safety car until those laps were completed and he would have finished second. But Red Bull intervened. Red Bull suggested red flagging the race, even though they could have just passed Max Verstappen's car on the track. There was plenty of room for that safety car snake to go by it, but no, they went through the pit lane and then Red Bull suggested to not. Anyway, Lewis Hamilton lost 18 points there. Things could have been different there. So Lewis could have gone into that race with an 8-point championship lead. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Okay, irrelevant. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But anyway,
lost some points and just all those little twists and turns that we can look back and that would have made the difference. But You win a championship over a season, not over a race.
Absolutely, you do win a championship over a season, Martin, but when we've gone the entire season and both cars are now level on points going into that final Grand Prix, you actually win the Grand Prix, sorry, you actually win the championship over that race, don't you? Because if you're level over the course of the season, this is the decider, isn't it? Yes. Yes is the answer. This is the thing that actually ultimately will now determine it. This is going to be the thing that separates out the two drivers, because all that has gone before it, the drivers are level. This is going to be the thing that separates out which one is going to finish higher. And although they were level, they shouldn't have been level, because you can remove a parade whereby Max Verstappen had 5 points more than Lewis, so that should be just be wiped from history. That was not even a race, wasn't a Grand Prix, should form no part of any championship, because nothing took place other than a parade so that they didn't have to refund customers. That's all that was. And actually, throughout that season, Max Verstappen was not penalised. Had he have been penalised, had he have had the penalty points imposed upon his licence, he'd have actually been banned for some of those races. Well, for at least one of them races. Anyway, we're now going to approach the point that I was hoping that people would have picked up on.
As Leclerc gets out of the way and lets Max Verstappen through, but at the end of the day, Mercedes and Hamilton came on so strongly at the end of the season, as they have done again tonight, and Lewis's pace with tyres that have been on since lap 14 is really quite sensational now, and just keeping anything at bay.
Talk more Mercedes in a moment. Verstappen, when he...
Because they do go on to say that Mercedes are on course for winning a record-breaking 8th World Championship. And remember, as it stands, Lewis Hamilton, so that's as it stands, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes on course, yeah? They're key.
Goes to wherever he goes to lie down, relax,
and just keeping anything at bay.
Talk more Mercedes.
Okay, this is the key. Here we go.
In a moment, Verstappen, when he goes to wherever he goes to lie down, relax at the end of this season, will he think back to Silverstone? Will he think?
Will Max think back to Silverstone? The incident where they vilified Lewis Hamilton, the incident where it incites the strap-on fanboy, these people that think Lewis Hamilton nearly killed Max Verstappen, because it was portrayed on the media that Christian Horner was disgusted with him. Everybody knows you don't stick a wheel up the inside at Cops, which is an utter lie. Max was in a 51G accident and Lewis is there celebrating afterwards whilst Max is in hospital. All these things that really, really annoy the strap-on fanboy. Okay, so we're referring back to Silverstone, when the reality is it was Max that chopped across the line of Lewis. Lewis had the inside line to a corner. He was fully entitled to be there. He didn't lock up. He wasn't out of control. He was on course to take a decent line around that corner. You don't have to hit the apex of the corner. You have to leave each other racing room. You have to leave each other track room. And Max Verstappen was guilty of crowding on track. He drove across the line of Lewis Hamilton's car as they were cornering. And even earlier in that lap, you'll see that Lewis Hamilton, when they were cornering and Max shot up the inside, well, what did Lewis Hamilton do? He just stayed wider. He didn't try and chop across the nose of Max. No, he just saw that there was a car on his inside and he stayed wide of it. Not Max, though. Max was at fault for Silverstone, but Crofty's bringing that one up to tell you about that now.
I think that if I'd have just given up the fight that day to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now.
Let me just replay that.
Will he think back to Silverstone? Will he think that if I'd have just given up the fight that day to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now?
I'd be world champion now. Will Max thinks if I'd have given up the fight to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now. So if Max would have yielded Okay, because now they're hinting, now they're saying, oh, actually, Max should have backed out there. Okay, they are acknowledging, well, they're not actually saying it in them words, but essentially that is what they're saying, because that's what he should have done. If Max would have yielded at Silverstone, okay, to win the overall battle. Now, what are we calling the overall battle? Are we calling it Silverstone, or are we calling it the World Championship? I would suggest it's got to be the World Championship as the overall battle. We will get the comments in the comment section attempting to always, as they do, validate something. They have to make an excuse for it. Oh, well, that's because he means this. Oh, well, that's because he means that. Oh, well, what you need to understand is you have to make 100 excuses for any of this to be true. In an authentic event, you don't have to make 100 excuses. You don't have to come up with 100 reasons why things were a certain way, because everybody accepts things for us to be a certain way, because that's just right. That's just how it is. There's no dispute, there's no argument. But when you can go through an event and you can pick out 100 things that are wrong, well, something's not authentic there. And the strap-on fanboy will think that they can present some sort of argument for each of these 100 things that are wrong, and that then makes the result okay. Well, I can justify this by saying it's that. I can justify this by saying it's that. I can justify this by saying it's that. I can just... No, you can't. You can't, because in an authentic event, you don't need to do that. So was he talking about if I'd have just backed out to win the overall battle? This is the argument that the strap-on fanboy will say. What he meant by the overall battle was winning Silverstone. If he'd have backed out at turn 1 to still win the Battle of Silverstone, would he be world champion by now? Well, what would that do? That would have given him 25 points that day. Hamilton 18 points that day, potentially. We'll forget the fastest lap at this moment in time. So going into that race, what would have happened? Well, actually, that day, Hamilton got 25 points, maybe 26 points, to Verstappen's none. Okay, I don't know who got fastest lap that day. So had that have been Hamilton getting 18 points for finishing second and Verstappen getting 25 points, well, that's 25 points extra to Verstappen and 7 points less for Hamilton. That's a swing of 32 points had he have won. Okay, but we can go back to Silverstone and we get told the notion that, oh, in order to win Silverstone that day, you had to be in the lead at the end of lap 1. In order for Lewis Hamilton's strategy to work in the Grand Prix, he knew he had to be in the lead by the end of lap 1, and that made him desperate to overtake on the first lap. Yeah, Hamilton had to be in the lead, and that's why Verstappen was fought so hard to make sure he wasn't in the lead, because if he wasn't in the lead, that's the only way Verstappen would have won. That's the narrative we got that day. It wasn't possible over the course of a 52 lap Grand Prix or whatever it was for either driver to win that race if they weren't in the lead at the end of lap 1. So what are you believing now? Which argument are you going to take now? Oh, the one that you want to take that's going to validate your opinion. Let's go with the notion of if Max Verstappen would have given up the fight that day for the overall battle. And let's just replay that.
Will he think back to Silverstone? Will he think that if I'd have just given up the fight that day to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now?
So, if Max would have given up the fight that day, so if it had yielded at Copse Corner and Hamilton would have gone through, and obviously that then would have meant that Hamilton would have won the race. There's nothing else could have happened in those 51 laps to either driver. Yeah, Max would have for sure not retired from that race, for sure not been involved in any other incident, for sure not suffered a tyre failure, for sure not suffered a mechanical failure or anything like that. Yeah, none of that would have happened. But he would have got his 18 points for coming second. He'd be world champion right now. Well, had he have picked up 18 points at that event, coming into this race, he'd be 18 points ahead. Would that make him world champion right now? Would that make him world champion right now, being 18 points ahead in the championship at this stage? Well, at this stage, Lewis on course for being the champion. Well, why is he on course for being the champion? He's on course for getting 25 points. 25 points would overcome an 18-point lead, wouldn't it? Max Verstappen is on course for getting 18 points. He hasn't got them, has he? Oh no, Max Verstappen has crashed. Oh no, Max Verstappen has got a puncture. Oh, and into the pits. Is that Max? Checo, we need to retard the car. We need to retard the car. Box. Really? What if Max's Red Bull had suffered that same loss of simultaneous loss in pressure in the water system, you know, the cooling system and the oil system at the same time, and Max couldn't finish that race? Well, that 18-point lead he'd have had going into there, well, that wouldn't have made him world champion, would it? You've got to finish this race to become a world champion. Tell us, Crofty.
Will he think back to Silverstone? Will he think that if I'd have just given up the fight that day to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now? Or
Max would be world champion now. Listen, strap-on fanboy, if Max would have just thought back to Silverstone and things would have been differently at Silverstone, he'd be world champion now. That's what you want to hear, isn't it? That's what you want to hear. Like I said in the previous video, people take from things that they want to take from them. They know that. They know that the strap-on fanboy will be listening to this. They'll be incensed by the Silverstone issue being brought up again. And then they'll go, oh, if it hadn't have been that, he'd be world champion right now. Well, no, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. If it wasn't for Silverstone, Max would be world champion right now. That's what the strap-on fanboy has taken from what Crofty's just said. Completely inaccurate. But you absolutely deserved it, Max. You absolutely deserved it. You had no luck all year. You had no luck all year. See how it all knits in?
will that not enter his mind?
I've asked him that a couple of times on camera and he's like, no, I wouldn't. In fact, he actually rejoined on that when I asked him that in Brazil. He said, no, I'd do the same thing again. My feeling is, I don't know why you do the same thing again, because he had a 33-point lead that morning. And
okay, and again, the way Brundle talks about this, I don't know why you do the same thing again, because you crash yourself out of the race. Should be what you should be saying there, Brundle. Why would you attempt to do the same manoeuvre again, knowing the outcome of it? You know that you crashed out of the race by trying to beat the other car, by attempting to force yourself in front of the other car. You crashed yourself out of the race. You expected him to yield. You tried to bully him, and he was entitled to be there. And you do that again. But by doing that, you caused a collision that took you out of the race. That's the simple way of explaining it, Brundle. But Brundle explains it.
And ended up, sadly for Max, in hospital that day.
Tell us again, Brundle.
Same thing again. My feeling is, I don't know why you do the same thing again, because he had a 33-point lead that morning and ended up, sadly for Max, in hospital that day.
Lando Norris on and up to 8th place after a late pit stop caused by that slow puncture. He's charging through the field. His teammate Daniel Ricciardo moves out of the way of Max Verstappen, then quickly gets back onto the racing line because he wants to try and keep Charles Leclerc at bay, but both Ricciardo and Leclerc out of the points at the moment. Mercedes on course to be Constructors' champions for...
Mercedes are on course. So we started off. As it stands, Lewis Hamilton. We finish off with Mercedes are on course. Okay? So Crofty here. Crofty can get it right. Crofty can get it right by saying, as it stands, as things are going, Hamilton is on course for becoming, forgets the 8-time bit, world champion. Mercedes are on course because they haven't won it yet. Hamilton hasn't won it yet. Mercedes haven't won it yet. But when he's talking about Max Verstappen,
will he think back to Silverstone? Will he think that if I'd have just given up the fight that day to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now? Or will
I'd be world champion now? How can you declare him world champion before the race is over? How many laps to go are in this race? How many points has Max Verstappen got now as a result of this race? At the moment, none. You've got to finish this race before you get any points. He's got 6 and a bit laps to go, hasn't he? You're saying he'd be world champion right now. He hasn't finished the race yet. He might not finish the race yet. He could crash out. His tyre could pop, dropping him down the order. He could suffer a puncture like Lando. You know, on those curbs that they grinded down, yeah? Yeah, it could be that. It could be a slow puncture. Really slow puncture. Any of that can happen, can't it? But you're declaring that had that not happened in Silverstone, he'd be world champion right now. Had Hamilton not have made a mistake with the brake magic in Azerbaijan, would he be world champion right now? No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. What would he be? He'd be heading into Abu Dhabi with an 18-point lead in the championship. He's leading this one. Would he be world champion right now? No, he wouldn't. He still has to finish this race, because if he doesn't finish this race and Max Verstappen wins it, the 25 points for winning the race overcomes that 18-point lead, doesn't it? But it's funny how Crofty can say Hamilton is on course. Okay. Oh, sorry. As it stands. And he does say at some point Hamilton on course. Mercedes on course. But had it not been for Silverstone, Verstappen would be world champion right now. People don't realise how layered this is. How deep. This is scripted stuff. This really is scripted stuff. And there'll be people that will want to detract from that. But hopefully, as you see more of my videos, you'll realise all of the different things being said throughout commentary that are wrong. And as you've seen, actually, we'll go through some of the comments. You're picking them out now. The number of things that are wrong in commentary, that when you analyse that commentary, there is just too many things that are wrong. It's not about opinion, they're just wrong. So we're going to rewind this. Tyre narrative is a huge thing. It's something I've known about for I've identified this, and when I put the footage out there that's now been blocked by YouTube on copyright, I was saying this is the tyre narrative, but these are the things that they're showing us. This is the pictures. These are the flashing images that our attention is drawn to. Okay. I've known that this tyre narrative, you know, I've started it off when Ted Kravitz in the pits is saying, "So, are we in for another tyre twist, Crofty?" And I think Crofty says either something like "surely not" or "wait and see," or one of the two. I think he says "surely not," or it might be "wait and see." We'll go through it. But that then, coupled with the comments that people are making, such as the grinding down of the curbs, and what has made me retrace back to, was Lando Norris's supposed slow puncture authentic? How was that timed in with the Christian Horner "We Need a Miracle" interview? And it very much seems that is when the plan kicks in. Very much seems that the contingency plan is there. If Max isn't on course to win this world championship, how do we change it so that he does? And so, if we enter the last 10, 12 laps of the Grand Prix, this is in kicks this machine, and this is how we do it. And there's got to be multiple elements to this, because otherwise, if it's just so absolutely blatant, then people will know. If it sticks out without all the cover stories, without all the confusion, without everything going on, then people will just see it as a singular crash that, they'll see that was a fixed thing. They'll see it's just like Crashgate 2008. But if you kind of embed so many different elements of this and knit so many different things in there, then people won't necessarily pick out that it's a contrivance. Many of them will just accept that it's just misfortune, incompetence, and everybody being confused. But it wasn't. It was a contrivance. So, thank you and hopefully you see that. So let's go back here. MVP Kryptonite, well done for picking that out. It's now possible for a championship to be won in a race. Because, you award the points for that race mid-race, don't you? No, well, they did in Belgium. They awarded the points for that race without there being a race. Funny that. Anyway, that'll do on this one, and I'll do a full breakdown of the audio and where we backtrack to for what's going on. Because we also need to show you what they were showing us at the point in time where Horner was on that radio to Sky Sports requesting the miracle. Anyway, thank you for your time.